Marvel slop is a term that has been increasingly tossed around every time the MCU releases another movie. But what is it called when the studio releases something that isn't slop? If I'm being honest, I don't know. Maybe you can just call it good? I've been burnt out of Marvel like most since Endgame. I would lock in for the Spider-Verse movies and the once in a while decent movie that came out of the MCU, but overall, that IP just didn't do it for me anymore. But maybe I was only burnt out because there's a group of heroes that were so forgotten that they could only be seen as a Marvel Rivals DPS or in a fighting game that apparently doesn't function on PC. The X-Men. Now, before 2024, I've only seen these guys in random comics I would pick up in a local comic store that was full with millennial dudes. There's a laser beam guy, a ginger, bald Stephen Hawking, and Wolverine, because everyone knows Wolverine. But not every member got the Wolverine treatment when it came to cinema. They'd either be in nothing cinematic or have pretty small appearances in mediocre movies. But then X-Men 97 Season 1 came out, and I realized these guys deserve more love outside the comics. The show was a continuation slash reboot of the big series, which honestly I've never watched because it came out way before I was born. The show was and still is beautifully animated while keeping a refreshed retro look. They utilize these characters that all have unique powers and personalities, resulting in everyone having a favorite X-Man, even though Gambit is objectively the best. And it has a story that portrays a divided society between mutants and people so realistically that I was ready to start protesting on the side of my street. Magneto's the Malcolm X, Xavier's MLK, and you see both point of views, but you still side to Magneto because he's just cooler. But that's what I got out of Season 1. So when Season 2 released, I honestly didn't know that it released, but randomly on July, I saw 3 episodes waiting for me, and now, after watching it, it confirms my suspicion of being the best Marvel show of all time. Season 2 is a little different than Season 1 in how it's structured. Season 1 was more focused on an overarching story and only diverted from it in like specific moments, being much more focused on a conclusion, which was broken up into 3 whole episodes. For Season 2, each episode is more focused on a specific character, which contributes to the story more in an indirect way. And a lot of the characters that get this focus are ones that did not have the direct spotlight in Season 1. Like how Nightcrawler is more of a cameo character in Season 1, now he's probably the most important character in this season. This structure is probably the one they're going to go with because it's like the Saturday cartoon vibe you would get after turning on that episode. You wouldn't know what that episode had to do with anything before or after it, but it was still cool. You still understood it, and by knowing what is before and after it, you still contribute to the overarching story. But I do think the overall story is weaker than the first season. The show threw its strongest punch first. I get that. Dynamic between Xavier and Magnus is probably the best part of the show. So by having the first season focus on that, they're going to get some brownie points. The whole season is centered around Apocalypse, which fair enough, he's going to bring an apocalypse. And he's threatening. He's a threatening villain that Marvel Rivals honestly should have used instead of killing him off and adding the Hood, because who knows who the Hood is. So anyways, X-Men try to stop him, average superhero shenanigans, because apparently every other hero is too busy. They go to the future, past, but most part they're in the 90s still. The story breaks in some parts, which is still great because all the extra stuff outside the main little storyline works well. Some main characters appear as basically cameos, except unlike the MCU, it's actually interesting because they give these characters something to do rather than having them say one-liners and appear in a post-credit scene. Danger shows up for an episode, and I didn't even know who Danger was before she was revealed in Tokon, and I still want more of her. I honestly just want more of the show overall. Most shows will milk it until they get like 10 seasons after falling off for the first 2. But this show, I want to be mad if they did that. I want to be mad if it ended up having 10 seasons after, 10, 20 or so years, because it's an expensive IP that has so much to use. In shows like Squid Game, I thought they were running out of story in Season 2. In X-Men, I feel like I'm just licking the tip of the SpongeBob popsicle. Watch your show if you haven't, and if you have, you can feel blessed that you got to witness the ending you did, and blessed that you got to watch this review, and therefore you should like and subscribe because you can support your niche indie YouTuber.